and welcome to the Route 1 Show, the podcast bringing you all the latest football action from West Yorkshire and beyond. I'm Stephen Brown, and with me in the studio this week, it's just Tim Feather on his own.
Hello.
What are we going to do, Tim? This is so weird, isn't it? Just us two holding the fort.
It is. We'll look after it while Alex is here.
Do you think Alex is not here because his predictions were so bad for the second week running?
Yeah,
it's a shame to show his face.
I think he's doing a bit of training, probably. He's just hiding, just keeping his head down.
Yeah,
got to work on things for 2 week time. When we do the predictions again, I think
come back strong,
bounce back ability.
That's right. Exactly. Now, coming up on the show, well, we're going to review the latest action for our clubs here in West Yorkshire, including Leeds United, Huddersfield Town, Bradford City, Halifax Town, Guiseley, and Bradford Park Avenue. And we've also got our three big topics of the week. OK, let's have a look at Huddersfield Town now, and joining us on the line now is Doug Thompson from the Huddersfield Examiner. Hi, Doug.
Hiya.
Well, I guess we have to, start with the Birmingham game. Lee Clark coming back to haunt Huddersfield. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, I mean, a very disappointing performance from Town, really. I think a collective off day,
Yeah.
Virtually every match this season that they've lost, they've been pretty competitive. And to a degree they were competitive in this one, but they shot themselves in the foot, basically, with, again, conceding goals at set players.
Yeah.
So in the second half, and that did it, really.
Yeah, it wasn't good, was it? Because, I mean, we've been speaking before, and Robbins have been speaking about how they'd played well, they'd competed in games, but this was a really bad performance against a team that were struggling themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was, a pretty must-win game for both teams, really, even at this stage of the season. Certainly, when you're in the bottom half of the table, which both these two are, you need to be picking up the points against the sides that are, around you in the table.
At home as well.
And getting the points as well, and at home, as you say, second home defeat of the season, which is disappointing, because the home form had been, fairly solid up till then. The Watford defeat, you could sort of understand in a way, because, they're a good side, and Town still evolving. But this was a disappointing one, no doubt about it. I think this is one that they really wanted to win badly.
It's the defence is questionable. You mentioned it there. I mean, Birmingham's second, for example. I mean, the defending on the post was just terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, really a collective off day. I mean, they weren't helped, obviously, by losing Peter Clark early on. Birmingham's first goal came when they were reorganising after that. They were missing Jonathan Hogg in midfield. It was one of those kind of players that you notice when he's not there, really. He does all the sort of nitty-gritty and nasty side of things, if you like. Obviously, still missing James Vaughan up front. That's the sort of spine of the team, really. That I think that told, basically. But certainly, two capable defenders in Gerrard and Lynch really should have dealt better. But the other interesting point, we were talking about it in the week, is that James Vaughan often is the first man to get his head to the ball defending a set piece. And they've missed him through that as well, not just up front, but defensively as well. He's such a good header of the ball, and he gets so high when he heads that, he's useful in both penalty boxes, really. And
his suspension's done now, isn't it? So he'll be back.
He comes back for the Sheffield Wednesday game, but because of the international break, it's been a long time for him without a match,
And it proves how vital, doesn't it? I mean, every game, because the Championship's so close, you miss a player like that for 3 games, it's such a massive effect, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and he's been obviously, a real talisman for the team this season. He's the top scorer with 11, probably as many as all the rest of them put together, really. Absolutely crucial, factor in Town. So even, the one thing that we did fear was either, Vaughan would be suspended or he'd be injured, because he's not got the greatest fitness record. He seems to have addressed that, touch wood. He's doing a lot of special training and a lot of extra sort of stretching and that type of thing to try and avoid the injuries he's had in the past, hamstrings and things like that.
Yeah.
But you're sure to miss a player like that, and the size of the squad that Huddersfield have, they don't really have a lot of covering depth. They've a bit of versatility, but they've not a lot of specialists. And certainly up front is somewhere that they probably need to reinforce, and also a centre back now as well, with Peter Clark out for possibly 3 months.
Yeah, I've heard it 8 weeks. I've heard it at one place. I mean, what a blow that's going to be, Doug.
Yeah, massive blow. Not just his defensive abilities, but he's the skipper as well. And a commanding skipper, and he's a presence really. Anybody who knows him knows. He's a very determined bloke, and he's a real winner, and he's the kind of guy that the other players look up to, really, both on the field and off it. So with him not being around quite as much, he's got to have a brace on his knee for about 6 weeks. Obviously limit him coming into the club as much and that kind of thing. But having said that, injuries are part and parcel of football, and you've got to move on and deal with them, really. Whether or not Town will bring a centre-back in on loan, that'll be an interesting point. But like I say, with Vaughan coming back, that's certainly a plus, that helps for the negative of Peter Clark missing out.
Hi, Doug, it's Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Hi. Just like Huddersfield's past 5 games, they've won one, which was the West Yorkshire derby at home at Leeds, but then they've lost the other 4. But could you argue that maybe the fixture list has been a bit unkind to Huddersfield? I mean, they had Watford, Leicester, then Leeds, then Wigan, then Birmingham. It's just a bit, do you think it might hurt the confidence, or do you think it might just, it might be just a bit of a rough patch for them?
Hopefully just a rough patch. I mean, like you say, it has been quite a tough fixture list. They played Leicester in that time, and were a pretty solid side. Certainly one of the best teams I've seen this season. Watford are always a difficult team to play against. Wigan on their own patch are a hard team to play against as well. Which, as we were saying earlier, it makes the Birmingham game all the more disappointing, the fact that they lost it, really. But in general in the Championship, I think it's such an up and down division that there is really no easy game in the Championship. If you're not on form, you'll suffer whoever you're playing against, and it's been shown sort of over the last couple of years that you can beat teams at the top as well. So really, I think in terms of the fixtures, you get what you get, and you've got to get on with it, really. For the one to sounding a bit like David Moyes, you don't want to complain about what's coming up, really. You play everybody home and away and get on with it, really. That's what I've always thought.
Yeah, well, like Sheffield Wednesday and Barnsley, even though they're sitting 22nd and 23rd, they've had some really competitive matches. I mean, you saw them two play each other, and then you saw Barnsley against Ipswich. They're not easy, even though they're sitting down there, they're not easy teams to play against, really. There aren't any easy teams.
No, it is. It's a notoriously difficult sort of division to predict, really. And on the day, teams can count. You look at the Sheffield Wednesday squad, and there's some really good players in there. We were just talking about it yesterday at work. There's no easy games, really, and it's amazing that Sheffield Wednesday are down where they are, really. When you look at the quality that they've got, the size of the club, the support. And it just goes to show, what a difficult league it is to sort of negotiate, really, when a club like that, finds itself in such a perilous position at this stage of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose one bright spot from the weekend there is Gerrard coming back into the team to score after the training ground dispute, shall we call it, Doug? Something like that, I suppose that's one of the bright spots you can take from the game, isn't it?
Yeah, you've really got. Yeah, like you say, you've got to look for positivity in this kind of situation. And as Marino says, it's never heaven when you win, and it's not hell when you lose.
Yeah.
And, try not to overreact and keep a sense of perspective, really. And it is just one bad performance in a whole season, really. All the other performances have been reasonably solid and competitive. This was certainly the poorest that we've had this season, I think. And hopefully, just put it in the past and kick on now. There's nothing you can do about it now.
Now, one of the other guys on the podcast, he's not here tonight, it's Alex, but he made a point last week about, is there some similarities to the Grayson regime in terms of started off okay when they're in the Championship and then just going into this decline that you just can't turn around, you can't find a win from anywhere? Is there any kind of stigma attached with that? Is that playing on anyone's mind so far? Is there any kind of parallels to the Grayson era that you come to your mind, Doug?
Well, hopefully not. I mean, it's something that Matt Robbins mentions himself. He's very aware of what happened last season. Yeah. He's a realistic kind of bloke. He doesn't pull the wool over anybody's eyes, really. Obviously, that's a worry amongst the supporters, and it's probably a worry amongst everybody at the club as well. Like you said, last season they were going pretty well, and then went into a real slump. Hopefully, they can learn the lessons of last season and address it and use that experience, to good effect. Like you say, with the fixture list, it's a sort of different kind of set of fixtures this season now, different set of fixtures that are coming up, and certainly, some winnable games coming up. And they've really got to sort of focus on that and just, grind out a win one way or another. And that sometimes can just turn things, and, as we know, football's a game of momentum, really, a game of confidence, and that's just that a little injection is what they need at the moment.
Moving on to Leeds United now, and a fantastic away victory for the Whites as they beat Charlton 4-2. And I'm delighted to say joining us on the line now is our Leeds United correspondent. It's Jennifer Berry. Hi, Jen.
Hi, good evening.
So what an incredible game, really. Ross McCormick, 4 goals, every single one a bit special, really, especially the free kick at the end. What did you make of it?
I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was just really positive. I mean, like you say, that every single goal that he scored was just, it was right out the top drawer. He's right back on form now, which is fantastic.
It's incredible. I mean, he's become Leeds' first player to score 4 since Brian Dean against QPR when Leeds won 6-1. Something about McCormick and the club. I mean, he had a rough start at Leeds, I seem to remember, but he's found his form now. He really is the key man, isn't he?
Absolutely, he did. Yeah, he had a pretty big dry spell at the top of his career, but I think he's endeared himself to a lot of fans. I mean, he has had a bit of stick, at the beginning of the season since he signed his contract, really. But no, I mean, he's always been a natural finisher. He's needed the right service. I think it's taken a little bit of time to sort of build this bit of a system around him and get used to what he needs. But I don't think his quality's really ever been in question, and he's shown us just how good he is with that.
Absolutely.
Amazing 4 goals.
Absolutely. The free kick, the 4th goal, that really was special, wasn't it?
Absolute perler. And we don't see many of them, I don't think.
No.
Really with Leeds, if you see a sort of free kick, it's probably a Rudy Austin pile driver.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of speciality we get. But I mean, it just shows how many sort of strings to his bow, as it were.
Yeah, incredible stuff. I mean, I suppose if you're looking for negatives and being a bit picky, very questionable defending for Charlton's 2nd goal. He seemed to kind of waltz through the defence. Is there still a couple of issues there, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the last couple of, the whole of the season, really, we're still looking at the defence. I mean, when obviously losing Warnock and Byram to injury, we sort of have to reshuffle again. I don't think we've had a really good consistent back forward that's actually been comfortable in the role. Tom Lees has had an all right sort of season. It's sort of tailed off. I don't think he's been as strong as he was last season. Jason Pearce is he's hit and miss. He can be really strong one week and then he can just look all at sea the next. And I think he's definitely got the ability, just the experience sort of needs to come there. So they're not. I don't think we're really confident within them, and we just seem to be a bit, we'll let them score, but we'll score more. Yeah. I think I don't think how it's going to get us very far.
A bit Kevin Keegan-like, isn't it?
God, I hope not. I don't think it's going to get any sort of runs going based on that. But I think something, in January, I think that'll be something Brian will look to sort of address. We do need somebody really experienced at the back, and whether it does mean bringing in somebody slightly older, because you look at the guys across the back for them 3 centre halves, they're sort of 23, 24, 25, I think. So
they just need someone else in to guide them a little. Do you think it's an interesting? I mean, Leeds they're right up there in the Championship at the moment, sitting in 8th place. If they're in a similar position in January, do you think the owners will push the ball out and we try and nick a playoff place?
You hope so. I mean, they have they've always said all along, there is the cash available. It's all about sort of doing it shrewdly, and I think McDermott will still be wary that he does want to get players off the books. So that I think it's all very well that he does want to go out and buy, but there's no point in sort of going out and buying when he's still got these players that he isn't going to use. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think there is a bit of a state where some of them, I think that's sort of less than it was. The people just want to sit there and just pick up a wage. But I think the performance, and this shocked me more than anything else, Danny Pugh and Michael Brown, the way they played.
I just had them written down on my list of next topics that we're going to discuss with you, Jen. Yeah, I mean, incredible. I mean, someone like Danny Pugh, I mean, from absolutely nowhere, has not played any games, but put in a real shift, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it was a couple of months ago now, and McDermott did say, how well he'd been doing in training, especially with some of the younger lads, and even though he has been in the development squad, the work that he's done, he always sort of had him in a positive mindset, and possibly, always sort of thought of them as coming in and being able to do a job, but I don't think sort of anybody really expected at least both of them to, to start the game and to have sort of the influence they did. I mean, I'm not Michael Brown's biggest fan by any means, but, there are some games that he can come in and, for want of a better phrase, do a job. Sometimes you need that he can just sort of sit there and, he doesn't make a lot of runs and whatever, but he's good organisationally and he can stick his foot in, which sometimes, you really need that. Sometimes Rudy Austin can be a bit off the pace and sometimes he can fly in with a great challenge, but on other games it's not just not that sort of tempo for him, and Michael Brown will always come in and do. You always know what you're going to get from him. Yeah, it's
interesting with Brown, isn't it? You would have, if you'd have had to pick the type of game and condition for a Michael Brown type of game, it would have been that, wouldn't it? Wet pitch, November. It's that kind of. It was set up for him basically, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. No disrespect to him. I mean, he's not actually a bad passer of the ball, but it definitely did sort of suit his game, and I think there are quite a few games like that, especially away from home, that really are going to suit him, especially over this kind of period where, there might be a bit more hoofball involved, but, with Dexter Blackstock sort of coming in up front, I think we've got a much better chance of sort of making that work for us. Absolutely.
What did you make of Austin's performance then against Charlton? Because much has been talked about him and McCormack, the link that they have.
It's just this great understanding. They just seem to understand each other. That's the sort of thing you presume they work on a lot in training, but they just sort of have that, which I don't think Austin sort of, in some games, that he's felt free enough to be able to sort of to do that, to link up with him that much. But no, I mean, he's again, it's that consistency for him. I don't think he was as prominent as maybe he was in the Euro game. But
yeah, I mean, looking at it now, I mean, final word on McCormack. I mean, he's been called up to the Scotland squad now as a replacement. Do you think there was anything in McCormack's mind where it was kind of proving a point, the fact that he hadn't been picked for the initial Scotland squad?
Yeah, I think it must always play on his mind. I mean, we were all sat there thinking, well, how has he not been picked? And it's been like that for quite a few sort of internationals now, where we're thinking, well, he should be in there. He is scoring goals. Yeah. What more does he sort of need to do? I think is also that at the back of his mind about proving himself to the Leeds fans as well, because he has had that sort of stick, and you've seen it in his performances and his celebrations as well, especially that he is sort of going out there and saying, I'll let my football do the talking, and rightly so, because he has been quite quiet on Twitter, so he's obviously learnt a lesson there.
I thought it was a bit unfair, a bit of stick that he was getting before. I mean, there were some fans that saw that were saying he only plays for the contract and that kind of thing. I thought it was a bit harsh on the lad.
Yeah, I mean, like I said last week, that's just the nature of football fans. We're just fickle, we like to see it every week, And I think, in fairness, he'll probably admit, well, I'd hope he would, even if he didn't do it in public. In the Huddersfield game, he was not in the game, he didn't look up for it at all. And Leeds fans don't mind if you're not scoring. You keep it in the post every week as long as you're putting in the effort. And just there were a few games that he just looked like he was. I mean, maybe he felt that he was, but fans always demand that effort, and as long as you're sort of meeting that, we'll support them. And so I think it wasn't merited possibly to that sort of level, but again, it comes with the territory, and he'll know that. But I can imagine after had a bit of that sort of dry spell that he really did want to prove a point, and he's still, relatively speaking, he's still quite young, so it's not surprising that he's possibly a little bit hot-headed, but if he scores 4 goals every week.
Absolutely. Well, he joined some illustrious names, doesn't he? Smith, Viduka, Clark, Lorimer, all bagging 4.
Yeah,
and McDermott himself, he said when he scouted Ross before, he did pick him out as a Premiership quality player, so you never know. Hopefully he can be with Leeds in the Premiership.
I was going to say, hopefully he can take us up.
Yeah, hopefully. So there's international break now, so there's no games coming up this weekend, Jen. Is that a good thing when you're on a bit of form? Is it a bit of a distraction, or is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think you prefer to go sort of into an international break having won, because obviously it's a long time to sort of go when you've lost. You want to sort of get back out there and put things right. But I think from Leeds' point of view, we have had a few injuries, there's been a few niggles, and I think if you get that sort of time to settle, then it's probably all right, as long as none of the players going out get injured. Obviously, the ones that are on the
McCormick, that'll be typical, wouldn't it, now? You can't lose McCormick.
I was going to say, Leeds did use the last international break to kind of recharge the batteries, and it seemed like McDermott seemed to sit them down and talk more about mentality of the game and stuff, and since then they've only lost once, which was in the West Yorkshire derby against Huddersfield. So do you think something like that will keep going, like he'll do something similar again for the
absolutely. I mean, I think McDermott's one of those people that uses sort of every day, it's not just sort of time to fill. He'll have, everything sort of planned out for this time, and, it will be things like, okay, we lost Byram and Warnock, and that's sort of thing that'll happen again. Where can they reshuffle, where can they improve? I imagine they'll be, watching that chat on DVD over and over again, sort of sorting out defence, and, there's so much work to do on that defence, and this sort of time, he'll use it well, and hopefully, like you say, there are a lot of players that sort of look quite fatigued, even if they're only playing once a week. So I think it'll help massively. Obviously, there's a lot of games coming up over sort of Christmas and New Year, so hopefully be that good break that they need.
We're having a look at Bradford City now, and joining us on the line is our Bradford City correspondent, Pete Chapman. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Stephen.
So, FA Cup loss against Rotherham 3-0. It wasn't a great performance, and Phil Parkinson certainly wasn't happy with it. What did you make of it?
I think it was a bit of a surprise, really, because the one thing Bradford haven't done so far this season is not put the effort in, and it appears that they weren't really up for the game for some reason, and Gary Jones has said that he apologised to the fans and they want to make it right on Sunday against Coventry, but it's hard to say. I mean, I haven't spoken to Phil Parkinson this week. The press call is on Friday, not the usual Thursday, but obviously a very angry manager after the game.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it seems to have changed the mood slightly, and that performance. I mean, it's funny actually, because we were speaking about Huddersfield Town earlier, and they were playing well and not picking up the points, and then they had a really bad performance against Birmingham. Is it a similar thing for City? I mean, that Rotherham performance, it just wasn't them, was it?
It wasn't. It may well be that they just they're getting the confidence has gone because, as you say, they've been playing well, but the points haven't been being picked up. I mean, particularly against Wolves in the second half, they're far the better team, but just couldn't get the ball in the net. And I suppose eventually that will get to you, and maybe your confidence goes. And it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, it's always said you can probably carry 3 players if you're playing well. Yeah. If you're not playing well, then it suddenly everything collapses.
Hi, Pete. It's Tim.
Hiya.
Yeah, I was going to say, like what you said about the confidence in the City team. I completely agree. I mean, like for example, Kyle Reid against Preston, he had probably one of the games of the year, and that's including like last season as well. But now it just seems to he doesn't seem to want to run at anyone anymore. Jones and Doyle, who were kind of like conducting the midfield at the beginning of the season, just look like they're getting overrun. And there's a couple of weaknesses at the back, which I know we've got Davis out, and we'll be missing McArdle on Sunday as well. But the team just seems to have lost the same kind of what they had at the beginning of the season, that kind of like mojo, if you like.
I suppose some of it could just be that it has been practically the same 11 every game, and it could just be fatigue that's setting in. And for all the talk of it, there's a squad that everyone's capable of playing. It is noticeable when key players are missing, particularly from the midfield. And as you said, Doyle and Jones, though, they're not having the same impact. Dominating midfield the way they were, and I think with Kyle Reid, Parkinson said all along that he's very much a confidence player, so when it goes right, he's perfect, he's on song, and that happens, he takes that into the next game. If it starts going wrong for him, then he starts withdrawing into himself almost, and is afraid to try things in case they go wrong.
Well, the other guy on the podcast, Alex, he mentioned something to me at the weekend. He said about City's a bit of a limited tactic. He said he'd noticed that the tactic seems to be hoofing to Hansen, who knocks it down for anyone else. Now, that might be, I don't know how true that is, but he says there seems to be a lack of a plan B, really.
I think that is a major tactic, and it only really works with Nahki Wells because he can read any ball and he has the ability to get onto any ball. It hasn't worked with other players in when Wells has been out injured. There is some fantastic football, and the tag team in almost of Kyle Reid with Mezza at left back, Meredith. That can be brilliant when it works. And the same, Stephen Darby going forward on the other side with whoever happens to be playing on the right is very good. And I think that it tends to be, though, with Bradford, that the substitutions are made at the same time every game. And at one point, they'll go 3 at the back, and particularly if they're chasing a goal. And it seems to be, maybe it's just that's how it works for that team, and they're the tactics they need to do. But I think it may be a bit simplistic to say they just hump it up to Hampton, because there is some good football being played, but certainly there's usually a ball in there at some point that goes over the top for Hampton to get his head onto. Yeah,
he also said that it seems to be that if they get 1 or 2 goals up, then the football is fantastic then. But if things are going against, like you mentioned with Kyle Reid, the confidence issue, is that something that's happens throughout the team? If they're behind, there isn't really, they don't switch enough around. There's not enough backup ideas.
I think possibly, yeah. I mean, against Wolves was a classic case. They were running all over Wolves. They scored. Kenny Jacks brings on Doyle off the bench, changes his formation to adapt to what Bradford were doing. And from then on in the first half, Wolves just ran the show. Yeah. Bradford came out, and it wasn't so much they changed their tactics, but it was just the effort they put in overran Wolves a bit. It was all about running, which is somewhat of a simplistic tactic, really, in this day and age. But it does work. And if you've got the likes of Kyle Reid, Gary Thompson firing on all cylinders, it can work, because Bradford can play at tremendous pace, but when it's not working and when the confidence goes, balls can just be wasted and opportunities wasted as well.
And up next, I suppose this is the last team you want to face, because you're up against Callum Wilson and Liam Clark, who've got 22 goals between them for Coventry, who are on fantastic form. Is that the last game you want, really?
Possibly, though. It's a situation that's similar to Bradford 2 or 3 years ago, where they tend to play better against the better teams. They haven't been lucky. Wolves game, again, being particular, and the Tranmere game, particular cases in point, they were unlucky in those games. But yeah, I mean, Coventry, if they win, they go above Bradford in the table, no matter what anyone else does. Yeah. And also, I mean, you have to say, I think they're 10th or 11th at the moment, and where would they be if they hadn't had the points deduction? They'd be up there. I think second is where they'd be. They are a fantastic side, and when you look at all the problems they've got as well, with fans not attending the home games at Northampton, they don't really seem to know what their owners are doing. But they have those 2 fantastic strikers there, and they are a phenomenon in this division, and really should be favourites for promotion, I think. It's
amazing, isn't it? Everything that's happened against them, it seems to have galvanised them in some way.
It does, yeah. I think, sometimes that happens, doesn't it? But there's also, I suppose the key thing is they have got some very, very good players. And like you said, it may be not the team that Bradford need to play at the moment. Yeah.
Especially with Rory McArdle being on international duty and Andrew Davis being out, it's going to be a very makeshift centre-back pairing, really, isn't it?
It is, and that's always a worry, because I think when Davis is there, they look a lot more secure, they look a lot more organised. I think the likes of Meredith and Derby have come on leaps and bounds since they first signed for the club. And I think then there are players that can come in and do a job, but you do have to worry a makeshift back four in front of a goalkeeper who won't have played maybe with that back four before, with the strikers that Coventry have got. You've got to be worried.
Well, it wasn't a fairy tale in the end. We're looking at Halifax Town. Andrew Pinfield, our Halifax correspondent, is on the phone now. Andrew, it was a difficult game against MK Dons. They lost 4-1 in the end, but it was a credible performance, wasn't it?
It was, really, because the scoreline didn't really reflect the way the game went. I mean, we went 2-0 down, and after that initial setback, going 2 goals behind. We dominated the game for 20 minutes or so, having numerous chances, but just couldn't find the back of the net.
Did they freeze up a bit, Andrew, do you think?
I wouldn't say they froze up a bit. No, I mean, we played some good football at times, and then when they got the 3rd goal, their bad heads never dropped, and we got a goal back at 3-1 through Lee Gregory, who was on fine form, and then unfortunately chasing that 2nd goal to try and get back into the game, MK Dons broke, we hadn't got a 4. So on reflection of the game, it was never a 4-1 scoreline. But said that, we've bounced back on Tuesday and beat Hyde 4-0, and that wasn't a 4-0 scoreline either. We weren't particularly good on Tuesday, and Hyde weren't as bad as their league position suggests, but it was never a 4-0 scoreline. And the 4-1 scoreline at MK Dons didn't reflect the way the game went as well.
Hi Andrew, it's Tim.
Hi Tim.
Are you a bit concerned about possibly the performance that Lee Gregory put in at MK Dons? Because according to one of their fan websites, it says that MK Dons boss Robinson is to look at Gregory and to look at him in the forthcoming weeks. Could he possibly have shown his card, Robinson wanting to look at him?
Yeah, that's the major downfall. I mean, there's 1 or 2 clubs looking at Lee Gregory, including Bradford City. Chesterfield were watching him on Tuesday, and he bagged a brace Tuesday night. He's now the 2nd leading goal scorer in the conference. And obviously at that level of football, if anybody's scoring goals, then there is that possibility of getting a league club. And Robinson, the MK Dons manager, did rate him, and he's now sending his scouts to come and have a look at him. So you can't judge somebody on just a 1 game, but he was impressed. So he's sending his scouts who will be in the stands on Saturday at the Shea as well.
But it's been impressive all season, really, hasn't it? It's been popping up with, even when Halifax have been struggling, he's been popping up with the goal to kind of change the game a little bit.
He's capable of doing that, is Greg. He works the channels well. He's not bad in the air. He's got a bit of pace. And he must have, I think somebody said he's got about 70 goals for Halifax Town now over 3 or 4 years, which is a good goal return in anybody's books. And he's come up the leagues with us, and now he's showing his prowess by being the 2nd top scorer in the league. So obviously if you are scoring goals, and you are going to attract interest from high division clubs, and he's on contract, so if the right offer came in, then it would be down to the club and the player, but we want to keep hold of him for as long as we can.
Absolutely. At that level, Andrew, what would happen in terms of a transfer fee, or what would a player like Gregory command?
Well, it's a funny one, really, because we saw with Jamie Vardy, where we sold him to Fleetwood for, I think it was about 300,000. We had numerous sell-ons in that with goal bonuses and promotion bonuses, and then Vardy only season at Fleetwood, and then got £1 million transfer from Fleetwood to Leicester City. So it's hard to say, really. I mean, you'd probably look at 150, 200 as a starting point. I mean, with goal scorers, they're a different breed than other players because they do command a fee. We've just seen this week a player from Blue Square South, Vassell, get a move to Peterborough, so that's quite a big step up. So there are gems in league football, and it's down to the clubs to negotiate transfer fees and what have you. But if I was the Halifax Town chairman or on the board, I'd be looking for at least £150,000 to £200,000.
Absolutely, and then maybe get a percentage of the fees later on if he gets sold again, that kind of thing. Yeah,
you've got to consider all these clauses and how you just never know what will happen in the future. So promotion bonuses, sell-on clauses. I think a lot of chairmen are aware of what goes on at this level of football and try and get a player on the cheap. But that's where the non-league clubs can just say, well, we'll let you go for such a fee, and then put clauses in like you say.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that fantastic 4-0 win over Hyde on Tuesday night, and now they're going to the Aldershot game at the weekend. What are your thoughts ahead of that one, Andrew?
Well, we've got 8 league wins at home, 2 draws. Aldershot second bottom, but let's not forget they're in a false position because they've got minus 10 points from the start of the season. If they had their 10 points, they'd think about 6 points behind the Shaman, but we are strong at home and we're looking for 3 more points Saturday. We've got a couple of players in on loan from Football League clubs as well. Archie Love joined us last week from Burnley, a midfield player on the left-hand side. And then last week, Joe Ironside, the young forward from Sheffield United, is coming on a month's loan, and he made his debut on Tuesday. So we are getting our numbers back, shall we say, after we just lost a couple of players.
Absolutely. It's interesting because there's a bit of similarities between Halifax Town and Bradford City with their opponents this week, because Bradford City are playing Coventry, who have kind of been galvanised by their points deduction, and is there a possibility Aldershot will have the same grip between the teeth when they come up against Halifax?
Oh, absolutely. There's no two ways about that. I know Coventry would be in fourth position if it wasn't for their -10, and Aldershot's league position, although the league table states the second bottom, they really are a mid-table team, and these teams, they like to put a show, and won't want to disappoint their travelling supporters who are coming a long way up from Hampshire, so they'll be going for the win, and definitely it won't be an easy game.
How fortunes change, and Guiseley, well, they've won 3 on the bounce. Things are completely different now. I'm delighted to say joining us on the phone is our Guiseley correspondent, it's Colin Robertson. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Steve. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So, 3 wins on the bounce, and I heard your post-match interview with Bauer, and he felt like the scoreline, 3-2, didn't quite justify Guiseley's dominance.
Oh, it was a super game last week, I have to say. Guiseley did play well and did deserve the 3 points, no question about it. It was a tough game, though. It was a very, very difficult first 10 minutes. Could have gone behind thanks to a penalty. And then they got they missed that one, and then in the second half they got quite a soft penalty, I think, to bring it back to 3-2 after we'd raced into a lead. But to be fair, we could have had more goals, and we defended so well in that last sort of half hour when Leamington threw everything but the kitchen sink at us. They didn't really create another clear chance.
It's incredible, isn't it, the turnaround, because we had Guiseley fans getting in touch with us saying we weren't being hard enough on Guiseley earlier on when Bauer first came in. But there's so many games in the Conference North. I mean, surely it's been proven that you've just got to give the man time, haven't you? And obviously, someone like Forrester's come back, and it's looking great.
Yeah, it's not just that. I mean, we had another centre-half pairing on Saturday. Danny Hull came in. He had to partner Ben Parker at centre-half, and the two of them did well. That was because Adam Lockwood and Jake Lawler, who'd been the regular centre-halves, had been away. One injured and one just not available. So, I mean, he still had to deal with issues. It's not just a case of the players he's bringing in, but the way that we're dealing with the issues as they arise. So, he had contacts. He's played with Hall before in the past, and on Saturday they both looked very solid as well at the back. So, yeah, maybe there were some calls for criticisms early doors, but it's such a lot of changes to make. I think now we're beginning to see some of the benefits of those changes.
Absolutely. If you had to compare the style that guys are playing now compared to the previous manager, Steve Kittrick, is there any noticeable difference to the style or how they're going about games? Is there anything that stands out to you, Colin?
Not really, in terms of style. I mean, look, it's still a 4-2-3-1, by and large. There is still the desire to get the ball on the ground and pass the ball. I think one of the things was there's obviously a bit of controversy around Danny Boschel when under Steve Kittrick he wasn't going to play again, and then of course has come back to the club as assistant manager. Yet I think when we talk about style on the field of play, what he does is get hold of the ball and tries to retain possession, and there's a bit more patience, I would say, if anything, in recent weeks in going forward, rather than trying to catch constantly the team out on an opposition team out on the break, or seeking to do so, being far more direct.
And that will be manager-led, won't it? That will be the manager having a word with him, won't it, and being clear of what he wants him to do.
Well, I think he's brought him in because he knows that's what Danny Boschel does. Yeah. I think that's it. That's probably the intent there. Obviously, they know each other very well as well, so there's that aspect too. It's easy to sort of read very basics into it, that it's all about the manager dictating what's going to happen on the field of play. But I think what he does is he's bringing in the personnel that he knows will do the things that I think he wants to see on the pitch. By and large, it's really all about passing football at this level now, and the quality of the passing and the movement and the ball retention is critical if you're going to succeed.
Hi, Colin. It's Tim.
Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Hi, not bad, cheers. What do you make of some of Bauer's signings since Kittrick came in? Because obviously he signed Matt Clark in the first week, but he's gone. But then Boschel coming back, and then Forresty got an assist last week, and then scored a goal on Saturday, and then Danny Hall scoring as well. What do you make of some of those signings? Do you think he's done well with who he's chosen?
Yeah, I mean, he's had to plug in a few gaps. Clark only played a couple of games, looked brilliant in the first half against Altrincham, terrible in the second half, and since has moved on. So some signings haven't worked out. Some have been perhaps stopgaps because of the problems that we've had with the centre-half position. But, the loan signing of Danny Hall is a prime example of just the contacts that Mark has in the game and how he knows players from his playing days at different levels of his career. So I think the signings he's done have been pretty good. Bringing back Danny Boschel has obviously had an impact on the field, in particular in midfield. And I think it's all sort of beginning to gel together, a squad that's in Mark's making. And I think they've been good additions by and large to the squad.
Fantastic. Now, Colin, it's the FA Trophy up next against Histon. When you're on the back of a run like Guiseley, is that a distraction? Is it a nuisance, or is it a good distraction?
Yeah, I think it's a positive, and I think Mark Bauer said exactly the same in the interview last week. We went out so early on in the FA Cup that you've got to look to these cup competitions. There's prize money at stake, don't forget. Yeah. So that's always good for the coffers. But also, get past Histon, and you've got a chance of playing a big conference side. And the size of the sides are up there. It would be quite tasty taking on Luton Town at Nethermore again. And you can certainly get an appetite for some of the big clubs. You can get some really big occasions as well. And we've had that in the previous years. Of course, it's a competition the club knows very well. Only recently going to Cambridge United and putting in a cracking performance, and recently quarterfinals hosting Luton Town. So yeah, I think it's a really important competition for us.
Bradford Park Avenue, well, it shows you how things can change very quickly in football. And joining us on the line now is our Bradford Park Avenue correspondent, it's Chris Bell. Hi, Chris.
Hello, mate. You're right.
I'm good, thank you. 2 losses in a week. What's happened?
Well, less than that, really, when you think of it. So it's 2 defeats in 3 days. It's things have suddenly turned a little bit less rosy, shall we say, than they once were. Especially when you look at it and thinking, it was 2 games in particular, for the games from the Altrincham games, that you'd looked at them before and thought, well, if they can pick up 6 points out of them, with it being away at Gainsborough that were, on paper a mid-table side, and then home to Altrincham, that was always going to be the harder of the 2 games. Yeah. But, you looked at it beforehand and thought, well, if they can take 6 points out of those 2 games, they'll be in that mix, you'd think. No more than a couple of points or so off the playoffs. As it is, they lost them both by 4-2. And they're right where they were like this time last week, really. And, I think they're now... Well, I think if anything, I think they've dropped a point, actually. It's now a 6-point gap instead of the 5 it was before the games were matched. So... it's been a bad weekend for Park Avenue.
Absolutely. What happened? I mean, we'll start with the Gainsborough result. I mean, 11 matches unbeaten they were going into that game, and just what went wrong for Park Avenue?
It's a back 4, quite frankly, and that's exactly what John Deasy said. I mean, he was apoplectic with rage, basically, just at the back 4.
That's scary.
When it came to trying to talk to him, I literally caught him for about a minute and 10 seconds. The end of the interview was his
just
doing
stared
rather
at
than my own.
Yeah. That's
it ended with a such and such and such, and that's all I want to say. And before I could even go for another question, that was it. He turned around, walking straight off to his car to drive home. No, he was furious though, because the back 4 that's been, pretty solid. Generally, shall we say? They've leaked goals, but they haven't leaked anywhere near that, and they haven't looked anywhere near.
Well, they've not had
organised.
They've not had a clean sheet since Guiseley, have they? I mean, that's back in September 17th.
Yeah, it's not great, but this is the thing. Park Avenue, they've been able to get away with it, shall we say, if you know what I mean. They've been able to concede a few, but they've always looked likely of scoring as many, if not, getting that extra one, shall we say, in some cases. With Gainsborough, it was just a bizarre lack of coordination, a lack of organisation. Nobody was picking up the man that they should be. Nobody was covering when, if James Knowles went forward to close down, Adam Clayton wasn't covering the hole that he'd filled, just allowing a Gainsborough to run in kind of thing. It was bizarre. I mean, the first 2 goals, cheap, frankly, is the word I'd use. It was just 2 simple tackles literally in the centre circle by Gainsborough. They were able to then just get the ball quickly downfield, and that was, they scored on both occasions with those two. And it was both times when Park Avenue were in possession and just gave the ball away. Credit to Park Avenue, they got back. They pulled it, made it 1-0, and then made it 2-2. And for the short spells after they scored, it looked likely that they could go on and get another, but it just never came. This was the problem; things just never came. Yeah. And with the lack of organisation and sorting out at the back, basically, it was a tough day. A tough day at the office for the forward-thinking players, really.
How much did they miss Anthony Davidson?
Well, he in the Gainsborough game, he did all right. He played for most of it. He picked up a knock late on, but I think at that point he'd already made his 3 subs, so he kind of just had to hobble around for the final 10 minutes. But this was the problem. I say with the Gainsborough game, the forward-thinking players. John Deasy said that he just felt sorry for the front 6, basically, for his entire midfield and attacking options, because the players at the back weren't giving them weren't giving them the service to be able to build up these attacks. With the Altrincham game, Davidson they weren't the same. He played Paul Walker through the middle up front. He had Nicky Boschel trying to play it on the left-hand side. Apparently, Walker had taken a bit of a knock, shall we say, at some point between the 2 games, and they didn't want to just, frankly, tire him out by charging up and down the left wing like he would do usually, so he switched to the middle. But he wasn't as effective through the middle. Davidson was missed greatly. Davidson has always been, and for myself and a lot of the co-commentators for BCV, he has been by far and above the best player that Park Avenue had this season. He's always been the man that, even when Park Avenue have played poorly, he's the man that will always try and make something happen and always looks most likely to be able to get around somebody or get past the final man and actually create things. That was lacking on Monday night, it has to be said. I mean, it's just frustrating. The game on Monday was so frustrating because at half-time it was 2-2. They probably should have been 2-1 up, really. The second goal, as well taken as it was from Damien Reeves, again, nobody really picked him up, or nobody got tight enough to him, and he literally just put the ball out of the air, brought it down with one touch and smashed it in with the second. It's a situation, though, if somebody had marked him tighter, it wouldn't have gone in. So again, the defensive lapses were there. Going forward, though, Davidson was a massive loss. There just wasn't the creativity. There wasn't the same width and flair that there usually is in a John Deasy Park Avenue side.
Hi, Chris, it's Tim.
You're right, Tim, mate.
Would it be possibly... could he say that John Deasy might be giving a couple of people a few phone calls to probably try and tighten up that back four, maybe see if he can bring anyone else in? Because, I mean, at the beginning of the season, that's where Park Avenue were really let down, and they had that horrible run at the start because of the goals that they were conceding. Do you think, he might try and bring someone in to maybe tighten it up a little bit?
It wouldn't surprise me at all. John Deasy hasn't mentioned anything, but after Monday's game, I chatted to Mark Hume, and of course the audio of the interview with Mark will be in Sportscene on Saturday before the Harrogate game. And Mark did touch upon the fact that, they might start looking at possible avenues of being able to bring in, people that will put pressure on the regular back four, shall we say, to make, almost just to make them tighten up, if nothing else. It's odd, though, because, Knowles and Clayton played together quite a lot last season, played well. Martin Drury, when he's played, he was there last season, played well. The only missing link, shall we say, from the defence that was pretty solid last year is Michael Duckworth. Now, he went to Hartlepool for in League Two over the summer. And, he's a right-back. You wouldn't really expect that losing a right-back could really make as much impact, shall we say, as it seems to have. But as I say, speaking to Mark Hume on Monday, he did definitely touch on the fact that they are going to start looking through a few contacts books, shall we say, and thinking, right, well, who do we know that might be able to loan us such and such a player and try and strengthen the defence that way? Or at least, give the current back four a bit of competition, because it's not a big squad. They have to rotate people into alternate positions, shall we say, if they have a great deal of injuries or suspensions or whatever at the back. So it's all about, they need to get somebody in just to, a bit of a rocket up the backside, really, for the current back four that, as we've seen, haven't been as tight as they should be.
Yeah, well, they say that, playing the same back four kind of, it gives you a sturdiness, but I think if that back four is leaking, especially leaking as many goals as Park Avenue, nearly 2 a game, and I think that they definitely do need that competition. I mean, they're in a similar boat to Bradford City. Phil Parkinson said this week about there needs to be some competition in the side, and the fringe players aren't pushing enough. And Park Avenue, maybe they do need that competition in the defence.
Well, this is the thing; they've not got a massive squad, so you'd expect that the players will know that there's not a great deal of competition, frankly, and they can not be complacent as such. I don't think that's quite the right word, but they're not that worried, shall we say, about losing a starting place, because there isn't that much of an alternative, shall we say. So absolutely, I can definitely see both John Deasy and Mark Hume trying to source other alternatives, be it just permanent signings, or, well, I'd say permanent, short-term contracts, shall we say, that are currently free transfers, or just trying to make the most out of the loan market.
Now, Chris, up next, it's Harrogate Town. It's the FA Trophy, so it's another distraction away from the league. I'd have to make notice that David Batty is an honorary vice president, apparently, at Harrogate Town. So if you do happen to see Batty, if you want to tell him that I'm looking for an interview, that'd be much obliged, Chris.
I'll do my best. I'm also aware, actually, that David Batty was linked to Harrogate Town, but now he's told me that, I'll be tracking him down for you, don't worry.
Track him Monday night, David Batty Saturday, he's mixing with the stars.
That's it, he's an elusive character, I'm chasing him down. So it's the FA Trophy, Chris. I mean, is it the right time to get a distraction away from the league? I mean, we've been talking about this with various people throughout the night about, the international break disturbances or cup trophies. When you've just lost 2 games 4-2 back-to-back, is it good to get away from the league?
I would have said yes. Again, I mentioned this to John Deasy on Monday night, and he didn't seem...
he wasn't bothered.
He didn't seem bowled over with the fact that I mentioned that as an option. Is he good to not have a league game and to be able to try and focus on something different? He didn't seem to agree with that thought, to be honest. Personally, I think that's exactly what the need is. Something where they can look at that and think, right, we can have a week off worrying about that league table and, how far we are behind the playoffs, how far ahead of such and such a club we are. I suppose the problem that makes it basically more like a league game is the fact that it's Harrogate Town. We've seen them in the County Cup. We'll see them twice again in the league over the course of this season. Personally, for me, when that draw was made, I wanted something a little bit different, something maybe from a league below, somewhere that the Park Avenue players, and frankly, somewhere that I haven't been as a commentator, somewhere someone like AFC.
This is about
File,
you, isn't
example.
It? Really, Chris? This is all about you, isn't it?
Well, no, but you know what I mean. It's nice with these cup runs. It's. I mean, let's face it. Ask any fan of from a club really from Premier League to League Two, wherever. In a cup tie, you want somebody different. You don't really want somebody that you're going to play already. And I would have liked to have got someone different, like FC United of Manchester or AFC Fylde. One of the different teams. Still not a million miles away, so it's easy enough to get to and that kind of thing. But just something a little bit different. of course, for Park Avenue, the FA Trophy, they've not got a great record in it at all over the last few years. It's a pretty poor record.
Where does the FA Trophy rank in terms of competitions? It's more prestigious than the County Cup, isn't it, surely?
Oh, yes. At the end of the day, it's a chance for non-league sides to go to Wembley.
Yeah.
And, that does really mean quite a lot to especially, maybe you could say that for a club like Park Avenue where, the overriding ambitions for the season is to get into at least a playoff place and be challenging to be able to get promoted. For, I don't know, I'm trying to think of sides that are lower mid-table, for example. Just, for a side that isn't expected to pull up any trees in the league, it's a great little, side task, shall we say. It's a chance that, if you're not going to do much in the league, to try and give it your all in the cup and get a great day out for your fans at Wembley. And of course, there is Avenue Street, financial avenues as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention. I mean, what kind of revenue would you get from a run in the FA Trophy?
Well, I spoke to John Dean obviously before the game on Monday, and I'm pretty sure, if memory serves me right, he alluded to the fact that the winner of the tie on Saturday will pick up, I think he said, about £4,000, and of course that will, like the FA Cup, it increases as the rounds go further. So it's not to be sniffed at, really.
Yeah.
To a non-league side, £4,000 is a substantial amount of money. So there's that way of looking at it as well for Park Avenue, that if, for example, John Deasy and Mark Hume do want to, add to the squad, it's all the more reason to try and do well in the cups, because it's, at the end of the day, you'd hope that this will increase the budget for the playing side of things, as well as for maintaining the ground and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Hi, Chris, it's Tim. Again,
you're right, Tim.
So I was going to say, on the financial side, you said, what is it? The thing for each team is, whether they're going to finish mid-table, playoffs, whatever. But surely for non-league teams, the main aim of the season is pretty much to stay alive. So the fact that £4,000, for a team like Park Avenue is a lot of money, and you go lower, £4,000 is a lot of money as well. But then again, you got to think on the positive side that there's big teams in the conference now. So you've got big teams like Grimsby in there, and teams that can attract.
I wouldn't really call them a big team, but
well, I'd just say like an ex-league team.
Is there some tribal loyalties coming out there, Chris, by any chance?
They were the first ex-league team I could think of. Sorry, the big teams like Lincoln in there.
That's better.
But I just mean, financially, that money will really help teams like this, where they stay alive, really.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, at this level of football, every level helps, quite frankly. At non-league level, I mean, especially for the conference premier sides, there's such a massive loss of revenue when you get relegated from League 2 into non-league football. Yeah. Speaking as a Lincoln fan, when Lincoln got relegated out of League 2 a couple of years ago, they lost over £1 million just through TV revenue alone. That's basically just through not featuring on the Football League show, 46 times a season.
Someone would say that's a benefit.
Well,
you don't have to wait up for it.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a financial point of view, it's a remarkable amount of money. So even the sides that are in the top level of non-league football they'll want to do well in it. But it's, I think I spoke last week, or the week before, ahead of the County Cup game, where, Steve Kittrick always said it's one of those where you don't really take it seriously until you get to the semi-finals. I suppose for those kind of sides, they'll expect to get through the early rounds of the FA Trophy. If they draw these lower league sides, they'll expect to get past them and get a bit further, and that's when it will start to become serious. For sides like Park Avenue, though, you've got to remember they're only the second tier of non-league football, so there's still a lot of expectation and hope, and obviously the FA Cup games against Kidderminster will have shown that side that that we can go and perform against the likes of second in the Conference Premier and hold them to 2 draws basically over 90 minutes if you look at it that way.
Keep a clean sheet.
Exactly. So this is it could be a big thing. It will be fantastic for Park Avenue if they can get another good cup run out of the FA Trophy. It's a good chance to get to Wembley, of course, which non-league sides, that chance just never really happens, right? Let's face it.
What do you think? Possibility of earning £4,000 there. What kind of dent would that put on a wage bill for Bradford Park Avenue, do you think? In terms of player wages and that kind of thing, could you cover the wage bill for an entire year if you had a run in the FA Trophy?
I suppose. Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking now. I wonder how much it increases, should we say, around that time. I suppose if, for example, if a conference north side,
you'd think it'd do a serious bit, though, wouldn't you?
You'd think if they went from the round on Saturday all the way to the final, and whether they got to Wembley and won or lost, you'd think that should be a fair amount of money racking up as the rounds go on. That should you'd hope that would cover a decent amount of the wage bill, really, for most of the squad, if not all of it.
Would it get featured on Sky, the FA Trophy final? Would that make it to Sky?
It was last year on the Welsh channel, because Wrexham and Grimsby were in the final, and I watched that game on the Welsh channel in English.
You're a football hipster.
The S4C channel.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I've got an inkling that it was on something along the lines of either ESPN or
there's that Premier Sports,
something like Premier Sports. Yes, because obviously Premier Sports had the rights to all the Conference National League games. That's now on to BT Sport. So it wouldn't surprise me if the latter stages, shall we say, maybe your quarters, semis, and your final were covered on such as BT Sport, for example. It'd be nice to think that anyway, at least, and with the coverage that they're giving of the FA Cup, you'd hope that they give it to the FA Trophy as well.
Absolutely.
I do have the prize money in front of me here, actually.
Go on then.
It says the third qualifying round is 4,000, and then round by round it adds up to 5,000, and then 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Then you get to semi-finals where it doubles, and you get 16,000. And then the runners-up of the final get 25, and the final winners get 50. So that's quite substantial, really.
That's not bad.
I mean, my maths isn't particularly great, but if you were to go from the third qualifying round of $4,000, and come hell or high water, somehow manage to get to the final and win it, excuse me, that is a substantial amount of money.
So now we're going to discuss the big topics, and we're going to start by looking at the Championship, which obviously involves two of our teams here in West Yorkshire, Leeds United and Huddersfield Town. So Tim, it's interesting, isn't it, now 15 games played in the Championship, the table. Is this a fair reflection of what's happened so far? I mean, it's really tightly contested again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely following the trend of all the other two football league divisions, where anyone is beating anyone. I mean, you look at a couple of the results, like Yeovil beat Forest. Leeds have gone on a really good run, and already they're 1 point out of the playoff zone. Huddersfield started off fantastic, and now they're sitting in a very precarious position in 15th. And Burnley, who have been playing top football, they're only 2 points ahead at the top, so no one's really running away with it.
No.
And
it's interesting though. I mean, if we look at the start for our teams here, Huddersfield and Leeds. I mean, you made a great point when we were chatting before the show about Huddersfield and the fact that it looks as if it's not a great run. I mean, obviously they had that great win against Leeds, but apart from that, they've not won any other games for a while. But it's so close, isn't it? I mean, you get a few results on the trot, you're right back in it, aren't you? But again, it can be a relegation battle as well.
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, Huddersfield, they're sitting 6 points above the relegation spots above Sheffield Wednesday. Yet they're only 7 points away from Reading, who take the last playoff position. So glass half full, glass half empty. It depends which way you're looking at it.
Absolutely.
But I'd sympathise with Huddersfield and say they've had a very tough run, which would get any team bogged down, really. I mean, they've had Watford, Leicester, and then they had Leeds, which was a fantastic win at home, and then they played Wigan, and then Birmingham, who were really desperate for anything they can get. So they've got a really tough couple of games coming up.
It's interesting, is it? I mean, I suppose when you widen the net as well, you look at elsewhere in Yorkshire. I mean, it's not been represented that well, is it? I mean, you look at 3 of the bottom 4 are all teams from Yorkshire. You've got Doncaster, Sheffield Wednesday and Barnsley all struggling. I mean, a team like Barnsley have been hovering, with relegation for the last couple of years. I mean, is it their time that they're going to finally lose a place in the Championship, do you think? Or is it going to be another escape?
Sometimes, you write teams off and you think that, it's going to be this time, isn't it? And it does look like that with Sheffield Wednesday and Barnsley. But, I mean, you look at Millwall. Millwall, were they bottom at table a couple of weeks ago? Now they're sitting all right in 20th. Birmingham, they were in the relegation.
Well, Lee Clark, I mean, it was close to. People would talk about him losing his job and that kind of thing. But
yeah, well, we said it, didn't we? We said that he was in trouble if he lost on.
Thankfully, we didn't have any bonus points riding on it.
Thank God we didn't. No, but they went out and won 3-1, didn't they?
Yeah, so
absolutely. It's difficult for the South Yorkshire sides.
Who's West? We're doing all right. Who have we been surprised by? I mean, I don't know about you, but I thought Bolton would be doing a little bit better than what they've shown so far. And Middlesbrough, obviously, they've had a change in manager now, and 2 teams really that I thought would have a better season than what they are doing.
Yeah, well, you could argue, are they the sleeping giants of the league? Are they just underperforming? I mean, Bolton, again, they were bottom of the league, and now they're moving up into 17th and got a bit of breathing space between them and the bottom 3. Middlesbrough, they had a good start, and then it all started to go off the rails with Tony Mowbray, didn't it? And now they've got Karanka.
He's coming. He has great experience in terms of European experience and worked with Mourinho and that kind of thing. But the Championship, I mean, it's a different animal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, there was something in the middle of the week which said he's Middlesbrough's first foreign manager, and I was like, well, I don't know about that because I couldn't really tell what Tony Mowbray was saying.
He had Strachan as well. So
he had Strachan as well, Scottish. So, but no, I think that Middlesbrough, they have got a good team, and they've got a couple of good players in there. I mean, Woodgate's there now as well, isn't he? Now? So he's gone back. But I think that they are underachieving. Yeah. And if I were to say the team that surprised me the most, I'd probably say Burnley, to be honest. I mean,
well, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, they're flying out. There's Sam Vokes and the like. They're all performing to the top level. I mean, they've come out of nowhere. I mean, you look at the goal difference of plus 17. I mean, do you think Burnley can sustain it? I think QPR are just going to come back. I can't see anything other than QPR for automatic. I know they've dropped down from the top spot, but I can't see anyone, usurping QPR.
No, I think when it starts getting towards Christmas and January time,
it's the quality, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the quality of those players will show through. I mean, even Wigan has some great quality. It's just I think if they weren't in the Europa League, they would be performing higher than what they are. I think those two got a 1-1 draw or 0-0 draw sometime the other week, didn't they? So,
and then there's Leicester. I mean, Leicester are flying. I mean,
they've got a point to prove from last year, haven't they? Really?
Yeah, he was under pressure, wasn't he, Pearson? But he's sorted it out, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's got it together.
They're on a League Cup run of their own now, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So it's an interesting one, the Championship. Then, if you had to say who the 3 teams that go up and the 3 that get relegated, who would you be looking at, Tim?
I'd be looking at Burnley nicking second spot.
Yeah.
I'd be QPR. I think will get it, and you know what? I'm going to make it a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the playoff. I'm going to go for Notts Forest.
You're going to go Forest?
Yeah, I think,
it's their time
a lottery,
at last,
isn't it?
And it's their time at last. They're well backed now, aren't they?
They've done quite well, but then again, could you argue? I mean, some Leeds listeners here might, they might shoot us down for being like, "Oh, you're only 2 points, 1 point away from it." But Blackpool did it a couple of seasons ago, so could Leeds gatecrash the playoffs? I mean,
has form on that.
I think for Leeds, just a playoff position would speak good. Thousands.
Absolutely,
I think it would finally rally people up, and I think that McDermott's mentality, rather than not just his tactics, but I think his mentality for Leeds has set him up. So they could gatecrash it. You never know.
See, I've gone for QPR and Wigan to get promoted. I think Wigan will be stronger second half. I've gone for Reading.
Reading?
Yeah.
I thought you'd have gone for Leeds.
No, you'd think, wouldn't you? No, I've gone Reading. I think Adkins. I think a team like that, I think, will pose a shock. What about relegation? Who have you gone for relegation?
I'm going to go Charlton.
I've gone Charlton.
I feel a bit bad for Dickoff because I do like
Charlton.
him in his slicked back hair. But, I think Charlton will do it. I think our South Yorkshire friends Barnsley will go down.
I agree. Yep, I've gone Barnsley as well.
And already cut adrift Yeovil.
I've gone exactly the same. Yep, I've gone Barnsley, Yeovil, and Charlton as well for the drop. So that's the Championship so far. 15 games in, and we'll be discussing the Championship later on throughout the season. And now looking at our second big topic of the week, we're going to review the Premiership so far. 11 games in, Tim. The big game from last weekend was obviously Arsenal versus Manchester United. And if we're going to look at the top of the league so far, Arsenal, the team that have set it alive this year, been on fantastic form, but come up a little bit short against Manchester United, do you think?
Yeah, they came up. They weren't as... they didn't have that attackive nature that they've had in the past. Aaron Ramsey and Ozil just didn't seem to,
Ozil was quiet, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was very quiet. He gave the ball away a few times as well, if I remember. But I think had Arsenal had that pace of Walcott and that working in their favour, then it could have been a different game and stretched them. But I don't think they were able to pull that off, to be perfectly honest, against... let's give them credit. I mean, I know Alex has been a bit dodgy about Man United, but I think they put in a really good performance in Manchester United.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they didn't have much of the possession. I think it was 40% possession or something, but they were just clinical, weren't they? And the opening of it, they battered Arsenal, didn't they? Really, they did.
And to say that the goal came from a header, a great header as it was from Van Persie. It just showed it. It wasn't anything class act like you would probably expect from a game like that.
Was it? Do you think Arsenal? Do you think they'll have enough to challenge over a long time? I did enjoy what someone said about Shearer. Shearer said he's not judging Arsenal yet until they've played more games. I think it was Dara Breen tweeted. So you're going to judge Arsenal after they've played everyone? Like, how can you do that? Yeah, they've finished fifth. Yeah, I don't think they're going to challenge for the title.
I must say I've said to a couple of people at work, I'll judge Arsenal once they've played more of the top four. Now,
11 games in though, Tim. I mean, is that enough to judge them on, do you think?
I think it is. I think, you get into, a quarter of the way through the season now, pretty much, aren't you? And they beat Liverpool, who are sitting in second. Beat Dortmund away, which for any English club is something massive. Struggled at Man United, but they did have a big trip to Dortmund in the middle of the week.
Man United had an easy game against Sociedad.
They had something a bit to prove there, did Man United, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think Arsenal have proved themselves that they can do it. The only thing I worry about
Chelsea,
Arsenal,
do you think that's going to be a big one for them, isn't it? Again?
That is going to be a big one because that will set them away from it. I mean, even a trip to the Etihad as well. That's going to be two very, you got the fast pace of Man City and the class that they play, but then Arsenal can show that themselves as well.
So where else in the Premiership has surprised you? What stands out? I mean, we've got to say, look at third place.
You know what? I can even show you my little fact sheet. I've got the Star next to Southampton.
You've got subgroups, haven't you?
I have. Newcastle did this 2 seasons ago.
Yeah,
they weren't sitting in third, and they weren't doing as well. And let's be honest. When Newcastle did it, the league wasn't as good as it is now. They didn't have it wasn't as strong as it is now. I mean, but Southampton just
incredible, isn't it? Really?
When Atkins was sacked last year, everybody was like, "What's going on?"
Absolutely,
That's ridiculous.
I held my hands up and went, "That is disgusting. That is an outrage," But
it's taken him to the new level, hasn't it? It's taken him up as Pochettino.
It's interesting though, the signings haven't necessarily done it for them though. It's all the homegrown players. I mean, you look at Wanyama, he's not set the world alight at all. He was a bit of a disaster in the last game. I mean, it's more the players that they've produced, isn't it?
It is. I mean, they've always had a fantastic academy there in Southampton, haven't they? I mean, they've produced Bale, Walcott. I mean, you said you wonder how much...
If there's any kind of follow-on fee or anything.
How much... If you added up the worth of those players, Chamberlain, all them, how much would Southampton have made just by bringing those players in? So, I think they are, the top there. I mean, you look at Lambert, he's got 3 assists, which, it's near a lot of players are on 4 and 3, and he's in there as well.
And he's a striker.
So he's been doing well himself.
So it's that style, is it? Elsewhere, you're looking at kind of the top half, Man City, Tottenham, not really doing much. Spurs have looked a bit ragged recently. Spent a lot of money, but there's no doubt about it. They're missing the Bale special factor. I mean, some of the games that they've drawn and lost so far this season were exactly the type of games that Bale bailed them out of last season, isn't it?
Well, he would. He did bail them out, didn't he?
I mean, accidental.
You just got to imagine against Newcastle, he'd have probably come up and got a free kick or scored 2 goals, which because Newcastle, for the past 2 games, I've watched them now, they just throw everybody behind the ball, absolutely everyone, and they ride the luck a lot, and they've got a super keeper with Tim Krul, but they're just riding the luck really. But Tottenham, they should have won it really, shouldn't they? They should have done more in that game.
Yeah, it's pressure piling up on Soldado as well, isn't it? We mentioned it last week, but
I think the elbow against Everton on Jagielka, I think that really told a lot about him, to be honest, because I think it shows how much pressure is on him and how much he's annoyed that it's not happening for him. But going to the rest of the Premier League, the big shock for me is at the beginning of the season, me, you and Alex sat here and we said Chelsea, Man U, Man City.
Yeah.
Well, they're 4th, 5th and 8th.
It's great though, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It's brilliant. I'm loving it. Yeah.
I mean, look at me moving on to your team. I mean, Newcastle are sitting nicely there, aren't they? In ninth. I mean, Padre was close to getting the sack, wasn't he, a couple of weeks ago? 2 back-to-back wins. Everything's changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, they're doing absolutely fantastic. I can't really fault them, really. No. I mean, the heart and desire that they've played in both games. I mean, I think Krul against Spurs was undeniably the. I mean, he has had a couple. He does sometimes have a few dodgy moments where he likes to run out, and
but he's had games like this before though, hasn't he, where he's done brilliant.
I think it were Arsenal last year. He played really well against them. Oh no, 2 seasons ago, so he played against them, and he played really, really well in that one. But I mean, when transfer window shut, my worry was where are the goals going to come from, because Cisse is not been firing on cylinders since he came in.
No,
I mean that first half season was fantastic, but now it's just gone. But Loic Remy's come up and got 7.
Yeah, he's been a top scorer, brilliant, hasn't he? Loan, do you think permanent deal in January maybe, or next summer would it be?
Well, if we go back to the Championship things, if QPR get promoted, which one will they want to stay at?
Yeah,
I mean, will he be more comfortable in Newcastle, or will he be more comfortable?
Let him go?
Well, yeah, they've got the money. They're going to have to part with him. Some cash there, aren't they?
So, looking at the bottom half, then, too. I mean, Crystal Palace. Do we think they're dead and buried?
I think so. I think too much. I think it's going to be far too much for them to get out of that now. I mean, I know they're 4 points from 11 games. I mean, people have had worse runs than that. But it's. It doesn't look good,
does it?
No, 6 goals.
Yeah,
that's the main problem.
That's bad, isn't it? What about Sunderland? Interesting one. Gus Poyet, he said, "Don't compare me to Di Canio," and I think he was right. I think when Poyet came in, I think he was a little bit unfairly. People making comparisons between him and Di Canio. I think that was unfair, and I think he's a bit more sane than Di Canio for a start.
And it's not as entertaining though.
Not as entertaining though. But I think there's a good chance he could get Sunderland fine. I think you could see Sunderland out of that drop zone pretty soonish.
Yeah, I think you can see Sunderland getting out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they've got the quality in their players. I mean, you look at Adam Johnson.
Yeah.
Larson, they are players who can win games on their own, and they have been there, done that in the Premier League quite a lot. I mean, you forget that, yes, they lost to Wolves with 9 men, which was a bad day. But then they bounce back and they beat Southampton, and then they go and beat Man City.
Yeah, so there's something there, isn't there?
There is something in that team that shows that they've got a bit of fight about them.
That can do it. And elsewhere, I mean, who do? I mean, Fulham are in free fall out there. They don't look like doing anything. Stoke aren't fantastic. West Ham, they're lacking a bit of inspiration. Norwich,
lacking the goals, aren't they?
I mean, it's very 9. Close, isn't it? I mean, as close as it is at the top, it's close at the bottom, isn't it? I mean, is there any? I mean, there's nobody there that you would say doesn't deserve to be there. they all, Norwich, for example, they've disappointed. Swansea for me have just
got that Europa though.
Do you think that's what it is? They've not adjusted.
Yeah, I do think the Europa League takes effect.
Yeah,
I thought earlier on Sunday, Villas-Boas was a bit harsh, a bit touchy because Pardew said, we capitalised on the fact that they're probably tired from the Europa League, and Villas-Boas was like, no, we're not tired. We've won 60% year after year. I was just like, well, it wasn't having a dig. It was just saying tactically, they'd thought about it.
Absolutely.
So, they thought, let Spurs come at them basically and let them have the ball and tie them out.
Absolutely.
I think Swansea are there just because they've had a bit of. They had a tough start, didn't they? Yeah, they did have a tough start.
It's adjusting to life in long European trips and playing Thursday, Sunday games. So Tim, if you had to pick your top 4, so we'll get the Champions League ones and then we'll get the relegation candidates. Who are you going to go for?
You know what? I really don't know. I can give you my top 5.
It's hard, isn't it? It's
really
hard.
I think it's going to be Arsenal will get a Champions League spot.
Yeah, I've gone. Yeah,
I'll go. Chelsea will get a Champions League spot.
I've gone Chelsea as well.
Alex is going to hate me, but Man United will get.
I've gone Man United as well. Yeah. So who's getting that?
I want to say Man City.
I've gone Liverpool.
But yeah, Liverpool are. It's just
they're a bit more resilient this year.
With Liverpool, it's the same as Arsenal. Will they keep it up for the full duration of the season?
People are so doubtful about these teams now. I think there's no way
we're just waiting for the wheels to come off. Yeah. Really, aren't we? I think Southampton could easily get a Europa League spot.
Yeah.
And even, I know they're out the League Cup now, but could they possibly push on in an FA Cup?
Yeah. I think it'd be a perfect opportunity for him to.
It would. Pochettino would want to put his claim in, really, wouldn't he?
So, going the opposite end then, who's going down? I've got Palace. I've gone Palace, Stoke, and I've gone Cardiff City.
Well,
Cardiff are just a bit volatile, to be honest, with all the shenanigans that are going on.
It is a bit of a QPR-like team, isn't it? It's very, very similar. I think, for me, if you're looking at the bottom of the table, it's a bit like a game of Tetris for me. I take Sunderland out, move them up, and it'd be Stoke, Fulham moving down, and I think that's going to be a bottom 3. I think it's going to be Stoke, last day of the season thing, probably between 4 or 5 clubs.
Yeah.
Norwich, Cardiff, Hull,
West Ham, maybe.
Because I am waiting for the wheels to come off Hull, to be honest.
Yeah,
I can see eventually other teams figuring them out.
Well, that's what I think with Cardiff. You see, I think I just can't see it lasting. I think if he'd have been allowed to get on with a job without distractions, and they may have done all right, but they're I can see him getting caught.
Unless Fulham strengthen in January. It's too open. The defence and the way they're playing, it's not working. I mean, it might work for Martin Jol. It might work in the Netherlands. Yeah, I mean, he came in and did a good job with Fulham at first. Yeah, and he did a good job with Tottenham, but
it's all fades.
It's too open, isn't it?
Making Berbatov captain, and it's the laziest player on the pitch, and I mean, is that to me is simply a mistake. It's just the wrong thing to do.
Especially when you've got Scotty Parker sitting in the middle.
Absolutely,
and you've got
a guy who's full of desire, and you look at the captain.
You got Hangeland in there as well, who's
I don't get it. I mean, it's
Fulham through and through as well. But
some people said, it's to motivate Berbatov, but that's at the expense of your 10 other players, isn't it?
It is. Berbatov is. It's one of them players who I think sometimes it doesn't look like he does much, but he puts in a massive performance.
You think it's subtle? And
I think he's a subtle player.
But when you go into
not
Anfield
shown any fight whatsoever. No. Nothing.
I mean, when you go into Anfield and, you're a couple of goals down in, however quick it was, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, and you look at your captain and he's, clearly disinterested. I mean, that's just not going to inspire the rest of the team, is it?
No, well, at the end of the day, they're adults who should be able to inspire themselves. Yeah. If we think of it out of football, they should be able to inspire themselves to do a job. But when you look at the main guy, you
give a football an excuse.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? Yeah. You've got to show something. Not just show the players, but something, but show the fans something. Give them something to. I mean, they do have a good front too. Berbatov, Ben. Yeah. I mean, a couple of seasons ago, that'd have been a dream Premier League strike force, wouldn't it? And now
Ben has sunk so far, hasn't he? He's not even on anyone's radar. There we go. So that's the Premier League so far. So we will wait and see what happens. Now, our next big topic of the week, well, it's internationals. We're going to have a look at England, but then we're going to have a look at the playoff games for the World Cup qualifiers, which Tim argues more interesting than the England game. I'll probably agree with him on that front. So we'll get England stuff kind of done. So England squad, I guess the most notable aspect is the fact that there's a couple of players out, Carrick and Gerrard. And Welbeck, and the Southampton players have made it into the squad. Lallana, and who else has made it in? There's Lallana,
Rodriguez.
Lambert's injured. Is Lambert injured? Lambert's injured. So it's Lallana and Rodriguez that have come in. So that's quite a positive thing, I guess, isn't it? Does that say something about Hodgson, the fact that he looks at the players who are in form and goes, yes, let's give them a go?
Yeah, I think that I will argue that international football is different to week in, week out in the Premier League. Which is why some players like Townsend excels or has looked. I know he's only played 2 games, but he looks to have excelled at international level. I mean, you can always argue that you've got international managers and you've got club managers, and you could probably argue that maybe players play better for the country or play better for the club. But so why not give them a go? I mean, it's a friendly. You know, I think that. A lot of people are saying that, you know, you're playing for your country, it's an honour and stuff like that, but a lot of players have dropped out. Surely that's just because they've got little niggles that they don't really want
Kyle
to...
Walker and what about the note? Because we're playing Chile first on Friday, and it's Germany next Tuesday. What did you make of Alexis Sanchez? He's come out and said that the English players don't have the fight or the desire because the upbringings and the way they go through the football channels is too easy compared to him, who I think he said he'd be in some ghastly job if it wasn't for the fact that he tried so hard at football. Has he got a point, or do you think? I mean, a couple of England players have argued back that motivation comes from within, and you know that's avoid.
So he's just kind of like saying that. If you want to be a professional footballer, you just get given it. Well, I'd probably tell him to go talk to the thousands and thousands of kids that get dropped from academies week in, week out just because they're not good enough. So I'd say go talk to them before you work out just because about motivation. Because I think it's that could be a dig at someone like Lampard, whose dad.
But there's no doubt Lampard's worked incredibly hard.
He has. They all have. Yeah. To become a professional footballer, you've got to change your diet, you've got to change your life, you've got to have backing from, you've got to have backing from a whole family, friends. You've got to be willing for someone to, some people around you, sacrifice everything they have just to support you. And I think that's a bit ignorant of him as a professional footballer.
There's probably talented players out there that have more talented than players that have made it and never make it because they haven't got the right circumstances. I mean, you look at Ravel Morrison. I mean, he's a really difficult background. There's a chance that he could not have made it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's down to luck as well as to whether you get spotted or not.
Yeah.
I mean, let's bring it to a local level. We just spoke to Andrew about the Lee Gregory. Yeah. He's in the lower. He's in non-league. Yet now
70 goals in 3 seasons.
Now suddenly he's getting league clubs looking at him. Yeah. It's like you've just got to have the look, haven't you?
Doesn't it? I mean,
you've got to work hard and you've got to have the look. And I think that's a bit ignorant to say that English players don't try hard. It's too easy for us.
Yeah, and another perfect example would be someone like Townsend, who sent out on loan to all these various clubs. I mean, think about just how many times he would have to move around the country.
Yeah,
just from a practical position, he would have had to move.
It's
not been an easy road for someone like that.
It wouldn't surprise you if at some point some England, like a player who's going out on loan all the time, would just be like, no, I'll just find something else.
Yeah, and slowly fade out and kind of drift.
I mean,
away.
You look at the amount of players that have played for Bradford City and have just gone by the wayside. Yeah. I mean, what are they doing now?
Yeah,
it'd be quite interesting to find out, to be honest.
Absolutely, and I mean, I don't think Chile have pulled up any trees, have they, in competitions? Really, they've not.
No.
I mean, Salas and Zamorano.
They're not what they used to be. No. They used to be a real force, didn't they?
Absolutely. It might just be a bit of mind games before, but it's only friendly anyway. I don't know why they're bothering.
It is. I think I understand that there being an international break and that this was an international break for the playoff games.
Yeah,
but I think that for the friendlies, England.
Yeah.
I can't see. I think there, like you just said, I think there are better games to be watching.
Well, we'll have a look at them now. So, I mean, two absolute belters here. We'll start with a team that finished, second. Was it second or third? Ukraine in England's group.
I think they finished third.
Didn't they? Yeah. Ukraine versus France. Now,
second.
It will have been second. England could have been playing Ukraine. France, rather. Thank goodness we avoided that. I mean, that is a tasty game. I mean, to imagine a World Cup without France, though, is that just impossible to do? I mean,
it's like tea without milk, isn't it?
France do bring a certain flair and something special, don't they, to a World Cup? I would prefer. I don't know if you call this biasness or whatever, but I would prefer to see France than Ukraine at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Just purely from the history point of view.
Because they'll be there to play, they'll be there to have a go. I mean, they'll bring out Newcastle fans with them as well. No, sorry.
No, this is a French national team.
So it's Newcastle.
Yeah. But it's going to be an interesting... How do you see that one going, Tim? Who would you put your money on with that one? I mean, it's 2 legs game, so the first game it's in France, isn't it?
It's the first game's in Ukraine.
Oh, in Ukraine.
It's a tough place to go, isn't it, really, Ukraine? It's not... I mean, England
just about survived it, didn't they?
Yeah, I think that it's not the easiest place to go. So I think if France were to come out of there with a draw, it'd be all to play for in France.
Yeah.
Which then I think Ukraine would struggle. I think France will end up winning that one.
Yeah.
But hey, there are surprises, aren't there?
Absolutely. And then there's another belter, Sweden versus Portugal. Again, I to be honest, looking at this one, I want to see a World Cup with Ibrahimovic and Ronaldo. Ibrahimovic has come out and said that it's more special if he goes than Ronaldo. Ronaldo's not that important. It's all about Zlatan. It's a difficult one. I would like to see both those players at World Cup. I think it'll be a shame whichever one doesn't go. I mean, not to reduce it completely to just one player, but they're both special players, and a World Cup without either of them has lost something.
You know, this will never happen in 1,000 years, but I would love it if Sweden got to the World Cup. They dropped Ibrahimovic just because a couple of seasons ago he went, "I'm not playing for you until," because he didn't want to play because he thought that the national team were poor, didn't he? I thought. Yeah.
Is that just Zlatan though? Is that just the mark of the man?
Yeah, he is. I would never say this to his face, but yeah, he's a bit arrogant, isn't he?
But I think, though, do you think on the day, though, I mean, Ronaldo's in such inspired form at the minute over in Spain. I mean, he's going to take the game by the scruff of the neck, you would imagine.
Yeah, but sometimes he is one that he gets let down by other people, don't he? I mean, people talk about who's a better player, Messi or Ronaldo, and for me, I think Ronaldo, because he's carried his club team, he's carried his national team. Yeah, Portugal are not a one-man team.
No,
but you got to say at the Euros a couple of years ago, he was their main player, wasn't he? And he tried tactically to take the winning penalty, and it all went wrong, really, didn't it?
There you go.
It is them two against each other.
Yeah,
I'd probably say Sweden. They don't have as much creativity as Portugal, do they?
Which one are you tuning in for there then? Sweden, Portugal, or France, Ukraine?
I'd probably go Portugal, Sweden.
Yeah, I think I would, just for Zlatan versus Cristiano, I think.
It is, yeah.
Just another mention, Messi. With it being World Cup next year, Messi's out for a couple of months now, and he's starting to get some niggling injuries, and he's not been scoring as many goals, obviously due to injuries. So you would hope, wouldn't you, Tim, that we get to see the best of Messi next year?
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to ever show it for Argentina, does he?
Well, I think he's been doing a little bit better. He scored a hat-trick against Brazil, and I think he's in. I think he's been harshly judged with Argentina. I think he had Maradona as manager at the last World Cup, who's not maybe the best guy to kind of,
I think he's probably been judged on the fact that the way that he plays for Barcelona. But then you got to remember with Barcelona, he's got Iniesta, Xavi, he's got all them players around him. Whereas Argentina,
they've got a great forward line, but
they don't have the same. They don't have the same team that they had a couple of years ago. They've got Aguero, Tevez, all that.
Yeah.
But that's where, Messi normally sits. He sits near the front, doesn't he? He needs the creativity behind him. Yeah. Whereas at Argentina, you haven't got that much creativity behind him. He's got,
people still think Messi needs a great World Cup, don't they? To say he's the best, or But if Ronaldo goes there and dominates, then he's going to get it.
Yeah, but then you look at the form Aguero's in.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like...
You never know.
I think if you're going to play Messi, you've got to choose which system you want to go with. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago's Argentina's team goal.
Yeah.
Where, what was it?
6-1 against...
yeah, but they did all them passes and everything,
incredible,
didn't they?
wasn't it? Yeah.
There was about 2 minutes. 2 minutes where they just held the ball and then they managed to score. And it's like...
Incredible.
Do they still have that, or have they now, Argentina just got, like England, good individual players?
Yeah.
Obviously slightly better than some of
better individual players.
But they've still got that, how do you make a team out of that?
Yeah.
And I think that's where Maradona probably went wrong.
Well, that's all we've got time for on The Route 1 Show this week. Remember, you can download and subscribe to The Route 1 Show on iTunes for free. And you can also visit our channel on YouTube and catch the latest episode on there. And you can also log onto our Tumblr page, that's theroute1show.tumblr, where you can read the thoughts of us here in the pod. And keep up to date with The Route 1 Show on Twitter by following us at The Route 1 Show. And don't forget, you can email us at theroute1show@gmail.com. And I'd like to thank all of our correspondents, Doug Thompson, Jennifer Berry, Pete Chapman, Andrew Pinfield, Chris Bell and Colin Robertson. I've been Stephen Brown, and with me in the studio for this episode has been Tim Feather. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thanks, Steve.
And thanks for listening.